Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's ResNexus webinar. We've got a great one for you. We're co-hosting is Diamo, one of our new integration partners. The topic for today is big picture revenue, 5 avoidable mistakes hoteliers make. So hopefully we'll get a lot of value out of today's discussion. And sort of co-hosting and guiding the discussion today on this topic is James Kay. And James is the CEO at Diamo, and he's going to kind of take it from here. We're going to have sort of a panel discussion going over these 5 mistakes that hoteliers make and how you can sort of address those. And then once they're kind of done with that, we will have time towards the end of the webinar for a Q&A. So if you do have any questions, you can feel free to submit them using the Q&A option at any time, but especially towards the end, and we'll try and get to those at that time. I think that about covers it from my end of things. So I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to James, and then we'll go from there.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Gavin. We definitely share in the excitement of kind of bringing our revenue management team and sharing some of the insights that we've learned working with ResNexus clients, as well as a number of other clients across kind of the small hotel industry. And so very excited to kind of walk through it. I think just really to kick us off, I do want to touch on who we are and ultimately why we exist. And I really do think it ties into the partnership that we have with ResNexus. Our focus is on small independent properties. And so there's a very kind of aligned and shared ethos between ResNexus and Diamo with respect to the types of clients that we serve. Fundamentally, what ties the owners and operators that we work with together is that they're often strapped for time, don't necessarily have a background or expertise, particularly in revenue management. And that is one of the most core elements of the business that drives performance. And so our mission is really to kind of simplify that as much as possible, simplify the ability for owners to be able to maximize their business performance without really the need for in-depth expertise across pricing, marketing, and then of course, really saving folks time and ultimately the cost investment associated with that as well. So with us today, we've got a number of folks from our revenue management team. By nature of the clients that we work with, it's been really important to us to staff our support organization with experienced hotel revenue managers. So you can see across the right side of the screen here, folks have worked at a number of kind of the leading and institutional management companies that operate hotels. And then also we actually, Fernando is formerly a client of Diamo's as well. So the team has a ton of experience in revenue management, and we're really excited to share some of the insights through this format today. Through the discussion that we had with ResNexus going into the webinar, it was really, what we're really trying to do here is give you actionable takeaways from this webinar that even if you don't end up working with Diamo, you can learn something today, take that back and really kind of implement it in your revenue strategy. Of course, we'd love the opportunity to work with you as well. So just really quickly, as it relates to kind of one of the key differentiators, I would say that Diamo has relative to other groups in the space is we think about revenue holistically. So it's not just about pricing and making sure you get the right price at the right time, but we actually go further up in the process to make sure how can we generate as much visibility for the property as possible. From that visibility, can we channel as much of those guests to the direct website as possible? And then finally, let's make sure we get the right price at the right time. And so what you'll learn through the webinar and as I kind of go through the product towards the end of it is really how this translates into the various different tactics that we help clients deploy through our platform. So in terms of how that manifests into the actual product suite that we offer, we have an AI-powered digital marketing suite. We help with Google Ads, we help with meta search marketing, we help run Booking and Expedia sponsored placements really to maximize visibility and drive direct reservations. Slightly less relevant for ResNexus clients because they already have really beautifully done websites, but to the extent that is something that can help drive return on ad spend, we do offer those as well. And then really the crux of the revenue strategy comes down to pricing. Our pricing engine updates rates every hour for the next 365 days based on a number of factors, which we'll kind of go into throughout the webinar and towards the end when we talk about the product as well. So with that, I'm excited to get into the 5 avoidable mistakes. And the first one, Emily will be covering. So Emily, I'll pass it off to you, and you can take from here.
Awesome. Thanks, James. Like James said, my name is Emily Cruzy. I'm a revenue manager here at Diamo, and we're going to start with one of the most common mistakes we see, which is treating marketing as a cost rather than an investment. Owners of small independent hotels often cut marketing first when occupancy softens. When demand slows and the market is stagnant, the move can feel really safe at the moment, but it actually is going to be limiting visibility and weakening future revenue potential. A common misconception is that ads only produce in the near or immediate term, but their visibility in low season can still have profound impact on both peak and shoulder seasons, which is why consistency is key when with ad campaigns for continued visibility and also placement against your competitors. One clear reason to keep marketing running is return on investment. When you have well-run campaigns, they don't just cover their costs, they reliably can generate multiple times of what you spend, often up to 10 to 15 times more. So cutting the spend might feel like saving, but in reality, it's eroding the revenue pipeline you've already built. Another reason is margin protection. Every direct booking you capture through your own marketing is one less booking that you're relying on through OTA and having high commissions. Over time, that lowers your cost of acquisition and protects your net revenue. If you pull back on marketing, your reliance on OTA creeps up and your margin erodes. And finally, there's the mindset shift. Marketing isn't just an unavoidable line item. It's a strategic tool for driving booking costs, direct booking costs, repeat guests, and long-term profitability. Owners who approach it in this way consistently see stronger performance than those who treat it as a cost to cut. And with that, we get the opportunity to actually look at the marketing dashboard within Diamo. So I'll let James pull up that dashboard and we'll kind of talk
Very
through
good.
the insights that you can see through marketing dashboard in Diamo. So thanks, James. Here is that dashboard in Diamo. It breaks out each campaign that we run, which is Google Ads or SEM marketing or search engine marketing, meta search, and OTA sponsored listings, while also showing your marketing spend as a whole. So here you can see those marketing KPIs and each title for each of those campaigns, and then that total to the left. You can track budgets, spend to date, return on ad spend, and conversions across every single channel. There's multiple filters to your top right, which is last 30 days, this month, last month, year to date, and a custom date. This allows you to customize your view and quickly see performance trends. You can see actual results, the conversions, the spend, revenue generated. So you're able to see and justify not only costs, but measurable outcomes. You also have a chart at the bottom that gives you more insights into your specific campaigns. So again, you can toggle between Google SEM, Meta, OTA, and actually see the campaigns you've created and the metrics tied to each one. So the bottom line is marketing isn't an expense to trim. It's truly a growth engine. When you can measure and show ROI the way Diamo does, maintaining or increasing budgets becomes an easy decision. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Emily. And yeah, I think one of the really kind of core pieces of our product is being able to understand when someone makes a reservation from clicking on one of those ads that we have the direct attribution. And so you can make informed marketing decisions. We work with tremendously seasonal properties across the board. And so that strategy may shift over the course of the year, and having real-time data to be able to make those informed decisions can make you have a much more effective digital marketing strategy. So it's definitely something when we're in initial conversations, clients are often like, well, how much do I have to put towards this? We often start folks out at really kind of low amounts, call it $100 to $150 across the strategies, establish a baseline of what that performance looks like. And then that allows us to scale up spend or scale down spend based on the returns that we're seeing. So it really is a return oriented approach. Awesome. Thank you, Emily. With that, we'll pass it over to Susanna, who will go over OTA reliance. I think just before I pass it over, Susanna, this topic is probably one of the hottest topics from clients that we work with. This is one of the most complex components of revenue strategy. We could probably do an entire webinar on it. So I know Susanna will try and break it down as succinctly as possible. But definitely, if anyone does have any questions on this topic, we've got all the experts on the phone here. So happy to answer them as well.
Thanks, James. Yes, I'm Susanna Turner. I'm a revenue manager here at Diamo, and I agree. I could talk about this for a very long time. It's definitely a subject that I enjoy. So I'm glad to be sharing this with you, but it is hard to just narrow down to just these three items. But to sum it up, we understand over reliance on OTAs is definitely a slippery slope, or it can be for lots of properties. So when we think about OTAs, we understand that OTAs are a really powerful marketing tool that can help supplement a really healthy distribution mix for your property. But when we over rely on those OTAs, that's when we start to see that our profits erode. So with that, we can't necessarily do without the OTAs, but we learn to work with them, right? So we understand the tools that are available to manage the OTA presence, and we can leverage that by adding more visibility and brand awareness that we gain from the OTA, but still ultimately drive conversions on the direct booking engine. So on the slide, we've got three different key points and ways that we can strategically think about the way that we use OTAs. So the first one is to use your markup strategically. So your markup is, of course, a really important tool. So using the markup strategically, it means optimizing that percentage increase that you distribute to your OTA channels based on your specific needs at that time, your commission percentage to that channel, and any other additional discounts that you offer on that channel, whether they're like member pricing or other promotions. Ideally, your markup is going to offset all of those things, right? Your commission to that channel, as well as those additional promotions. But this number can also fluctuate seasonally and depending on your needs. In your lower demand seasons, that might be a time that you need to rely a little bit more on that OTA business, and maybe you want to have a slightly lower markup during that time. In high seasons, that's the time that you want to yield out that business because it's more costly. So that's a good time to offset by having a slightly higher markup. So again, it's really based on the needs of the property at the specific time. Another way that we think about over-reliance on OTAs and how we combat that is the ways that we choose to participate in our OTA promotions and loyalty programs, and considering whether or not they're appropriate to participate in. So the first thing that I would like to think about, or I would encourage people to ask about, is firstly, does the promotion that I'm considering, does it actually make sense for my target guest? If you find that, for example, over 80% of your bookings come from a mobile device, then maybe participating in a mobile promotion isn't really needed. That might just be leaving money on the table at that point. The other point that I'd like to ask is, does this promotion stack on top of another existing promotion? This is something that historically Expedia is a little bit more straightforward about promotion stacking. Booking.com in the past was not as clear about it. They've gotten a little bit better. We put it on the slide here, this top chart that breaks down base rate, these blue bars, and then campaign deals and portfolio deals. They've now made this information a little bit more accessible to you all, but it gives you understanding of how do my promotions compound against each other, to understand like what is ultimately the rate that's going to be coming back to me on a booking. So if we have an understanding that, on booking.com, I participate in the Genius program, and maybe I also participate in country rates because I like to use booking.com to get that international channel to my property. But if you also have a last minute deal open on your property, that means that a guest could be getting up to like 30% off because of the stacking of those promotions between the Genius promotion, your mobile or country rate, and then a last minute deal or basic deal that you add. So it's really important to consider all of those because those stacked promotions can quickly outweigh the markup that you choose to distribute to the channel. So that's a big one. And then we can't forget about the direct channel, right? So am I participating in a channel or a promotion on a channel that I'm not also replicating on my direct channel? Because ultimately, we still need to protect and ensure that what we're offering on the direct channel is the best rate available. So if it means that you want to participate in a campaign on an OTA that gets lots of extra marketing and visibility, okay, let's think about replicating that offer also on the direct channel and maybe making that discount a little bit deeper. Or maybe you have an evergreen non-refundable discount that's available all year round, but you see that Expedia has a campaign coming out where the minimum discount to participate is 10%. Your non-refundable rate that you have all the time is 10%. Hey, that's easy enough. Let's participate in that campaign, get some free visibility for an offer that you already have out there. So that's another way that we can think about, are we ensuring that what we offer direct is still the best possible rate out there? And then lastly, visibility. This is a really important one, right? We use OTAs to gain visibility, but ultimately want to drive them to our direct website. So the ways that we can try and increase our visibility without adding additional cost is by focusing on ways that we can do this organically. So we like to be monitoring what our offer strength is on Expedia, for example. They'll give a ranking based on the availability that you have on the channel, what kind of rates you have out there. Are they way above market pricing or way low? And then your guest experience also plays into this. Guest reviews are important, of course. Those are things that are going to impact your ranking on the channel. And then overall content, good photography, good list of amenities. Are your properties or your rooms really well merchandised on the channel? Those are all things that are going to help boost your visibility on the channel without throwing money towards accelerators or other rank boosting tools, which are costly ultimately. And that sums up our three strategies there.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Susanna. I think just to cap that one off, all of this is best thought of in the context of the holistic revenue strategy. So when we talk about visibility on the OTAs, that's not only to drive OTA reservations, but also people discover your property maybe on a Booking or Expedia. They then go search for the hotel. And then it's how can we position that direct website to actually be the best possible place for the guest to book? And that's where some of the other marketing tactics can come into play. And so all of these pieces kind of fit together into a bigger picture, ultimately to drive the best possible revenue outcome. With that, we'll hand it over to Fernando and we can start to talk about pricing.
Thank you, James. Yeah, my name is Fernando. I'm also a revenue manager here at Diamo. And the third mistake that we want to highlight is oversimplifying pricing. We see a lot of times where hoteliers fall in this trap of thinking of pricing just about one factor, which could be basing rates on your costs or following what a competitor is doing, or even basing your pricing decisions in the perceived value of your property. And the problem with sticking with this approach is that you're leaving too many variables out. We should be looking at all the pieces together. Your costs for sure are important. The market demand, which is translated into seasonality, special events, and of course the competitor rates, which we will be discussing in more detail. And of course your property's value, which leads us also to the property demand, which we think is probably what is more important. Is are we receiving bookings? How far in advance we're receiving those bookings? And James, if you can help me go into the next slide.
Yeah.
Thank you. We want to prepare our customers on how to avoid this trap. And we think that we need to address this as thinking on your pricing strategy more than just your rate. And we first start setting price floors and ceiling and really focusing on optimizing them. And we kind of think of this as our safety nets, the minimum price that your rate will never drop below to protect your revenue. And this is typically close or slightly below your operating costs and the maximum rate so that we never leave money on the table as demand rises. And considering all these factors should, in theory, brings us to dynamic pricing, which is where we start adjusting rates based on the demand for the property and the market, the competition, which is the competitor rates, and the property's value. This is something that, in theory, humans can do, but the good news is that we're living in 2025 and we can leave that decisions for technology to be made, and we will be able to adjust dynamically in real time so that we're always selling at the most optimal rate. Um, Again, pricing we could be speaking a lot about pricing, but we want to keep things short so that we can cover all the topics. So I will pass it back to you, James.
Awesome. Thanks, Fernando. And just to round out this one as well, I would say this is one of the key conversations that we have with clients through the onboarding process with Diamo is let's really understand how all of these factors influence both your price floors, your price ceilings to get to the optimal revenue strategy. So you may understand today like where you think these things should be, but as Fernando mentioned, we can leverage software to basically come to the right answer and ultimately lead again to a better revenue outcome. So with that, we will pass it off to Colby to talk about competitors.
Thanks, James. I'm Colby Ingram, and I'm also a revenue manager at Diamo. One of the easiest traps to fall into is not leveraging a strong competitive set to drive your hotel's revenue. If you use a bad comp set, it can create a lot of blind spots, especially when they're used strategically to price the hotel along with what's going on in the market. And so it's important to remember that things can change really fast, and hotels really need real-time insights without there being a big risk that you're not going to make good pricing decisions, which lead to missed revenue. So I want to discuss how to select the right competitors and then how to use them in a strategic way. So first, when we're selecting competitors, it's important to look beyond just the proximity to your hotel. The goal is to find a comp set that allows you to make pricing decisions rooted in your customer's perceived value. You want to consider numerous factors like the hotel's review scores, the amenities, the design quality, service level. The competitor's distance to demand drivers and the hotels closest to you are also important. But it's also a good idea to keep in mind that those hotels that are most priced like yours are also good competitors. This really allows you to build a good, strong comp set that you can leverage in an effective way. For example, a hotel outside of your immediate location, but with similar vibes that is the same size as your property and often has rates closer to your property might be just as relevant or more relevant than the hotel that is right next to yours. And so once we've selected the right competitors, the next step is to define how we want to position your hotel within that competitive set. Market positioning is really all about knowing where you belong and where you want to be relative to your competitors' rates. Your market positioning is what keeps you from being over or underpriced, and it anchors your rates to how guests perceive your value compared to the options around you. So for example, if your property is much nicer than one of your competitors, but your rates are sitting below that property, you're likely undercutting your own revenue potential. And then on the flip side, pricing above your value can ultimately lead to lost bookings. And so with Diamo, we help you set that positioning so your pricing always reflects where you should be in the market. Here we would use Andy, our AI model, to find that unbiased rate position, and then we as expert revenue managers will optimize to ensure that we're positioned well. After you've defined your proper positioning, the next step is to weight each competitor by relevance. It's important to keep in mind that not all hotels in your chosen set have the same level of importance when making pricing decisions. And so this weighting allows you to prioritize the hotels that are most aligned with yours based on factors that we discussed earlier. And since no comp set is really ever perfect, this is how we can fine tune it so the most relevant hotels have the greatest impact on your pricing decisions. And at the same time, we don't want to ignore those competitors that are in your market, even if they aren't as important as your primary competitors. So even lower relevant competitors can signal like compression opportunity, which is high demand periods in your market, allowing you to capture stronger ADR, especially if it's well outside of your booking window or really what you're focused on, which could be just this week or the next 30 days. And then the final step is monitoring. And this is where strategies can like really start to break down. Manually checking your competitor rates every single day across multiple hotels when you're looking at 365 days into the future is really not realistic, and it takes a lot of hours to do that manually, and often leads to being overpriced or underpriced, and you never even know it. So Diamo can solve this by using we have a live rate shop built directly into the platform, and the system sees those pricing shifts across your comp set and then responds in real time. And so just to recap, leveraging your competitors in an effective way is foundational to building your revenue strategy. And so when you combine an unbiased data-driven platform like what Diamo offers with us, the experts at revenue management, that's when you really start to see those performance gains. And so, and also it's really just a great way to reduce your own workload. So and with that, I'll hand it back to James.
Awesome. Thank you, Colby. We are moving on to Daniel to tie it all together.
Thanks, James. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Daniel Segerblom. I lead our revenue and product teams here at Diamo. Thank you, everyone, for joining. We're super excited to be here and be presenting to you alongside ResNexus. Avoidable mistake number 5. We've talked about some really important factors today, from marketing, distribution, multiple components of pricing and how to approach that. And the fifth mistake kind of ties it all together, which is many hotels keep pricing, marketing, and distribution in silos. And so what that means is that they focus on pricing or marketing or distribution without considering factors from each of the 3 verticals. And this can lead to a lot of different problems. On the left-hand side here, you can see I've listed 3 of those kind of core problems. One is lost revenue opportunities. When we look in isolation at pricing, marketing, or distribution, there are scenarios where you may, as Susanna was talking about earlier, look at adding a promotion to the OTAs, and you might not consider your retail price positioning or the amount of money you're currently investing on direct marketing. And if you don't look at those factors, you may make a bad decision regarding that OTA promotion, and that might lead to lost revenue opportunities or increased cost. Secondly, decisions made in isolation. I think that kind of covers across what I've just said, but again, making sure that you're looking at all 3 components together and considering factors from all of them. And part of that is number 3, to avoid conflicting strategies. I put one example here, which is low rates but no marketing push. This ties a little bit back to what Emily talked about in terms of marketing earlier. If we are just looking at pricing and the hotel is experiencing low demand and we make the decision to continue to lower the prices, lowering that price may not actually result in increased demand. It may be a visibility problem that you have and not a price problem. And so it's important to look at pricing and marketing together in that situation to make the right decision. So what's the solution? The solution, first thing to do is integrate pricing, marketing, and distribution. For small hotels, there's likely not a marketing team on site or a distribution team or people handling that specific element. That might be all 3 of those tasks might be consolidated into one role. And so it's really important that that person or that small team is looking across all 3 of those elements. Diamo absolutely helps to do this. We believe we're one of the few, if not the only platform on the market that consolidates your marketing data alongside your pricing data into the same platform where you can quickly view both. And so this is a really great way for small hotels to do this efficiently. That ties into number 2, which is shared data and goals across teams or tools, where again, Diamo is enabling you to have both data sets in one place. And if you do have different team members that are looking at these areas of the business, everybody can see the same information in the same place ResNexus plays a role in that. We're pulling that data directly from ResNexus and feeding that PMS data into the Diamo platform and really showcasing everything together. And then finally, just ensuring a really unified approach when there are multiple people tackling these different strategies, coming together, meeting, discussing, strategizing. That's where our support team can help to do that. Talk through each of these things, look at them as a holistic piece and not just an individual vertical to ensure the best outcome for your hotel's revenue performance. That's it on avoidable mistake number 5. James, I'll pass it back to you and you can take it from there.
Awesome. Appreciate it, Daniel. I do think just as we kind of wrap up the key mistake, we can take a couple of questions. I think there's a few that came through. Daniel, do you want to field the questions?
Yeah, absolutely. Start off, we do have one question here from Robert, and I will read the question out, and then I'll go ahead and take this one and provide an answer. So if the question here is, if I'm understanding ResNexus correctly, if we would use dynamic pricing, that price would then be passed on to the OTAs, and then they would have their Genius discounts and any other that might be available. So the OTAs would then have a lower price than the ResNexus price. Is that being understood correctly? And to start off, whether you're using dynamic pricing or not, and Gavin, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty certain this is the answer here. ResNexus will always be feeding static and dynamic prices through to the OTAs, regardless of how that price is input in ResNexus. That price is going to be delivered to any connected channels directly from ResNexus. So just to hit on the first part of that question, there's no difference in what's being sent to the OTAs, regardless of whether you're using dynamic pricing or not. Dynamic pricing is really just what facilitates how frequently and where that rate is positioned across your price calendar. Getting into the discount portion of this question and whether or not the OTAs would be priced lower. Yes, if you are pushing a retail price to the OTA and then adding a discount, a Genius discount or any other discount on the OTA platforms, then that rate would be priced below your direct channel. What we would recommend is that you then duplicate or replicate those promotions on your direct channel and create similarly fenced offers or comparable offers to ensure that you always have the lowest rate available direct. Alternatively, Susanna talked about the OTA markup earlier. And so just to use a simple example, if your price is $100 and you push that $100 price to the OTA, and then you have a 10% members discount, your net price is $90. We would recommend that you use an OTA markup, and your retail price would be $100, and you might mark up your OTA price by 10 or 15%. Then when the members discount is taken out, it gets taken out of $110 or $115, which ensures that the OTA rate doesn't dip below your direct price. So 2 different approaches to ensuring that you have the lowest price available direct, but it does require some action in order to offset that outcome. If there's any follow-on to that, please let me know, and I would be happy to go into it a little bit further. We have
take maybe one, one or two more, Daniel.
Yeah, let me take a look here. We've got a couple other questions. This one is related to competitors, and the question here is, what if one of my competitors performs poorly? Am I risking my own revenue by their bad decisions? And I think this question is probably tied to using competitors within your pricing decisions and competitive set. Colby, you spoke to competitors earlier. Do you want to take this question?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So I think the solution is using a dynamic pricing engine, factors in your competitor rates and demand so that it kind of insulates you from competitors making those poor pricing decisions. Diamo, as Fernando mentioned, you have the opportunity to have those built-in guardrails such as pricing floors and ceilings, which safeguards your strategy. And you can also monitor certain hotels without letting them influence your rates, giving you a lot of flexibility if you're unsure about their relevance. So, we're able to factor in the demand and the competitors to make sure that neither of those causes bad pricing decisions.
Awesome. Thank you. And we've got another question here. Great question in relation to marketing. And the question is, why not just lean more heavily on the OTAs instead of spending on your own marketing when the OTAs are already bringing you bookings? Emily, you had touched base on marketing. Do you want to take this one?
Yes, for sure. So OTAs definitely bring volume, but they also take significant commission on every single booking. So when you're investing in your own marketing, like with Google Ads or Meta Search, you're really building up that direct pipeline and you're lowering the cost of acquisition, and you're also keeping more revenue in-house. Over time, that is going to protect your margins, but it's also going to build a database of guests that you can remarket to at a much lower cost. So that rather than replacing your marketing spend with OTA reliance, think of marketing as a way to reduce that OTA dependence and also strengthen that profitability long term.
Thanks. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Definitely, we recommend focusing on your direct marketing, and in any case possible, leveraging your available resources to push less profitable OTA bookings out and focus more on direct bookings. All right. Go ahead, James.
One quick thing to add to that. So within our product, and we were looking at it earlier, I can flip back to it here. We show you what the return on ad spend is, which is if you spend $1, how many dollars do you get back in revenue? And so the case that we're looking at here, if I spend $1 on marketing across these tactics, I will get $19 in revenue in return. The other way to think about this is the inverse of that metric is essentially your effective commission on those direct bookings. So if you're at around a 20x, for example, that's essentially like a 5% commission on those direct bookings. And so when you look at the cost of driving business direct relative to the 18 to 22% that you're going to pay through an online travel agency, that relative cost is substantially lower. And so that's what, when we talk about looking at ROAS or, thinking about it in terms of an effective commission, it's really how can we get the right business mix that not only optimizes for gross revenue and visibility, but also optimizes for net revenue after the cost of acquiring guests, whether that be through an OTA or whether that be through marketing strategies.
Absolutely. We've got one more really great question here, so I want to take the time to answer it. And this is a question we actually get at Diamo a fair amount. And the question is, my commission percentage is different across various OTA partners. Is it a good idea if I'm using an OTA markup to have a different OTA markup for my different OTA rate plans? Susanna, I think this is a great question for you, with you having covered the distribution portion earlier. You want to take this?
Yeah, sure. So it's a really good question, and it makes sense to think that you should do this, but really in reality, it's best not to. The reason being that it can be very risky when you publish different rates across different OTAs because of different either rate parity agreements that are in your contract, and also in the way that these OTAs often shop each other and do price matching. So it can be a very difficult game of cat and mouse between two different OTA channels trying to bid for the lower rate. And that can be ultimately, that could hit your bottom line because then the OTAs are trying to price match to get to that same ultimate public rate. So the best practice is to really keep your public rates as consistent as possible across all the OTAs. And then, of course, leaving your direct channel in favor and being the lowest available. So that way you still are going to be getting all of the maximized benefits of having good visibility on those OTA channels, avoid parity violations where OTA channels are trying to rate match each other, and potentially penalties against those OTAs. That being said, there are really rare occasions where different markups on different channels could make sense, and that's really exclusive to opaque channels. So channels like Hotwire Hot Rates, where the guest doesn't know the hotel or the rate that they're booking necessarily until after they've booked, because those are ultimately not public rates at that point. Or if you participate in really, really niche OTA channels that are not going to be overlapping with your more main channels that you receive OTA business from.
Awesome. Thanks, Susanna. Yeah, I think just to round out that recommendation from a high level, we always suggest that small hotels in particular make an attempt to have their lowest price be direct, and that is usually executed through this OTA markup. However, we don't recommend that you use different markups across the OTAs. So you want the lowest price on your direct channel, but you want parity across any other distribution channels that you're using. Just wanted to kind of sum up that response there.
Okay. I think that's what we got.
All right. Filled
Well,
the hour pretty much exactly. That was
love it.
awesome. Thank you guys for your insights. Really appreciate that. This webinar will be available on the ResNexus website within a couple of days. You'll be able to see and review all these top 5 avoidable mistakes in the future as well. And we'll send up a follow-up email that'll include that. But I think with that being said, I think we'll call this a webinar. So thanks everyone so much for taking the time out of your day, and we hope you have a great rest of it. So
Thanks, everyone. I really appreciate it.